All right, this is the Big Douglas Show. I'm Big Douglas. He's the rapper Big Pooh. And our guest today from Establish the Run is Evan Silva. Evan, thanks for hopping on today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I'm ready to talk some ball with you guys.
Yeah. Well, for our regular listeners, we won't have a Friday show, so we will get in the birthday game today. Let's start with Hines Ward. Hines Ward has a birthday this week.
Hines Ward. I think Hines Ward is turning 47.
Evan, what do you think?
Hines Ward, some of the best hands in the history of the league. Never dropped anything, and one of the best blocking receivers of all time. I think he's got at least one Super Bowl ring, right?
Yep. How old do you think he turns this week?
What'd you guess? 47? I think that's a really good guess. I will go with 46 just to undercut him.
Hines Ward is 45 this week.
All right.
Oh wow.
It is Common's birthday this week. How old do you think Common is?
Oh, the rapper?
Yeah.
I know Common is about 48.
48, you got it. Who's the best at this? I'm telling you, he crushes. I don't know if he's cheating or not, but Common is 48. All right, Tristan Thompson for the Cavaliers. It's still with the Cavs.
No,
right?
Boston. You were Boston.
Now. He's got a birthday this week. How old do you think Tristan Thompson is?
31.
He is not 31. Evan, what do you think?
I'll say 30.
Tristan Thompson, 29 this week. All right, we got two more. Lester Holt has a birthday this week. Lester Holt.
I have no idea. I'm stumped on this one. Do you have any idea, Evan?
I will go with. I think he's an older dude that kind of looks a little younger. I will go with 65.
62. Lester Holt turned 62. And we'll wrap up the birthday game with Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris has a birthday this week.
Oh, Chuck Norris is definitely every bit of about 70.
I actually know this on the spot because I was just looking at this. He's 81, man.
Really?
81. Yep.
81 for Grandpa Norris.
Wow.
I still kick all of our asses right now.
Oh, yeah.
Combined.
Definitely.
All right, well, let's get on to some football. Ron Rivera we hadn't really talked much on this. Ron Rivera had a press conference yesterday where he addressed some of the Alex Smith stuff. I wasn't surprised by that. I mean, they had to have been shocked that he wanted to come back, that he was going to get cleared to come back. So a lot of those comments that made people upset, I was surprised at. Had you guys heard those comments from Alex?
From the GQ interview?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard the comments, and I wasn't surprised either. Especially with it being a new regime coming in. Ron Rivera and his staff had no allegiance to Alex Smith, and they were just trying to figure out what was what when they came in. Obviously, it was a lot swirling around the team at the time, so I wasn't surprised at all. I was surprised at how Alex Smith may have taken it. I don't know if he needed to use that as motivation or not, but I was more surprised by that than Ron Rivera and Washington's the regime's view on Alex Smith at the time.
I guess at the end of the day, he felt like they kind of didn't want him there, right? Because he's a holdover. He's coming back from this injury. He's not part of their future, and they're trying to start something new. They have a lot of young players. They're a young team at this point. I would consider Washington to have, really. They got old there for a while, but now they're a really young team with, Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson and the new OC Scott Turner, who I really, really like. He really started to catch my eye toward the end of his time in Carolina, just getting the most out of players. And I think that he did that. I mean, you saw Logan Thomas have a career year. Terry McLaurin had almost 1,200 receiving yards despite playing through 2 high ankle sprains. Antonio Gibson, who, didn't have a lot of college production, looked really, really good, I thought, in his first year. And Alex Smith, he's just not part of their future. So I understand that feeling. And I mean, it's kind of like the way that it should be, unfortunately, even though we all like to see Alex Smith succeed after he's just known as like being a really good guy. And also, coming back from that brutal injury. I'm sure that you guys saw that the ESPN show about his recovery and all that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like to know from you, Evan, like with free agency coming up, obviously we have a hole at quarterback. What they say, when you have multiple quarterbacks, you have none. Mm-hmm. So we have a hole there. But what other positions do you see Washington attacking when the free agency period opened up?
Well, let's just start with quarterback because they did re-sign Taylor Heineke, who showed a little bit in the loss to the playoff loss to Tampa Bay. And that was against a really good defense, and he was able to move the ball consistently, not just through the air, but also on the ground. I think he had like 50 rushing yards in that game. So he's back. And then Kyle Allen is coming back. These are guys that Scott Turner, they're coming from Carolina. They both spent time with Carolina. I think at the end of the day, I don't know. I think they might look at Cam. I mean, I think that there's a chance that they might look at Cam Newton. He's still only 31. He showed that he could still run last year. There were concerns entering last season about his foot. He has a history of foot injuries, and then also his arm. He didn't show very well with regard to his arm, but he had flashes. Like I remember in the week 2 game, I think it was an island game, maybe on Monday night against Seattle, and he looked so good in that game. And then he just kind of tapered off. He also got COVID, if you remember. Mm-hmm. And he's spoken about this, how he kind of it was never the same for him. He never felt good the rest of the way. He had that in like week 4, I think, or week 5. So I wonder if I think he still has a good relationship with Ron Rivera, and I think that he would be an interesting pickup. A guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick also. See, Washington is not in position to get one of these top quarterback prospects. I mean, it doesn't really seem like, and Mac Jones might be a guy that might fall to them out of Alabama, but he's also not a guy that isn't real mobile. And I think that in today's NFL, you want a quarterback that can move. I mean, these are too fast out there. I mean, it's not a pocket passer league anymore. But I think that Washington could look in the direction of Cam Newton and maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick. In free agency.
Now we know they have talked to the Jets about Darnold. Is he cooked?
Man, he is a talented dude, and he came out of USC really young. He was like not ordinary, like unusually young. I think he was actually one of the youngest quarterbacks to ever be drafted in the top 10. And of course, he went to the Jets, and I mean, he showed promise, as a flash player early in his career. But man, Adam Gase just sucks the life out of any offense. And I mean, we've seen, with the countless guys that have gotten away from Adam Gase and gone on to, that's like a meme now. Like you get away from Adam Gase and you have a career year elsewhere, So, and I mean, I believe in it. The sample size is big enough now that I think it's a real thing. And what I worry about with Sam Darnold is not his ability, but like, has he lost his confidence?
Right.
And I do think he absolutely needs a change of scenery. And he'd be a really interesting. I mean, in Washington, they've got a good right side of the offensive line. I think they need to do some stuff to improve the left side of the offensive line. They've got a true number 1 receiver Logan Thomas, I thought he got better like every game last year. I mean, he was playing some really good football at the end of the year. So they've got some pieces there to put around him, certainly more than he played with when he was with the Jets. I mean, early in his career, he showed a legitimate rapport with Robbie Anderson, and then they just let Robbie Anderson walk. I mean, it didn't make any sense why they did that. Jets
being the Jets.
Yeah.
Another quarterback that's been mentioned with the Washington football team is Marcus Mariota, whether it be by trade or the eventual release from the Raiders. What do you think about Marcus Mariota?
Well, he's another young quarterback that, I mean, very similar to Sam Darnold. Early in his career, he showed quite a bit of promise. And then I think that, and he was another, guy who came out young out of Oregon. And then his confidence seemed to waver. He could not stay healthy there for a while. And I mean, he was trying to play with this like nerve impingement in his throwing arm. And, he had all kinds of injuries, some to his legs. And I think he needed a change of scenery, number one. Number two, he just needed almost like a year off, like for his body to heal, because it had gotten that bad. And he got that with the Raiders. And then you saw in the one game where Derek Carr went out early, Mariota came in and he played really well. That is one game. And, I think it was against the sort of underachieving Chargers defense, but he would be an interesting guy to take a flyer on. I don't think that anybody knows the true trajectory for a guy like Sam Darnold or for Marcus Mariota right now. I think that you can only say that they have talent, but they are still major question marks.
It's interesting. I was thinking about, you said this just a minute ago with the offensive coordinator. I think fans of Washington were hard on him, but the more national guys we talked to, they like Scott Turner and what he was trying to do last year, right?
Yeah. And I know that he is he's a forward, he's like a progressive guy, and he is I know he's into analytics. And I mean, you just look at I guess the number one thing that I look for in an offensive mind is he getting the most out of the players that he has. And I do think that he got, Alex Smith won comeback player of the year. Taylor Heineke in his opportunity played really well. McLaurin, again, had a studly season. Antonio Gibson had a really nice rookie year. J.D. McKissick even,
McKissick had a great year.
And he's like a fringe NFL player, really. I mean, it wouldn't have surprised anyone if J.D. McKissick didn't even play in the NFL last year, but he wound up playing, being a significant cog in the offense and being a chain mover for a team that was built around its defense and built, that in the image of a team that wants to play ball control offense and then, kind of win with its defense and win a lot of close games. And I think that Scott Turner understood that. And all these guys had good years. They were able to deal with the problems on the left side of the offensive line. You go back to Carolina, Kyle Allen he's another fringe NFL player. And he did pretty well, getting the ball to DJ Moore and in Carolina, and Christian McCaffrey had a monster year in that final season that Scott Turner was there. And I'm a fan of Scott Turner.
Got you. In this free agent class, the wide receiver position has been reset a little bit with Chris Godwin and Allen Robinson being franchise tag. Who do you see as the next tier of wide receivers, free agent wide receivers, potentially a number 2 target for Washington, being that they need to add some more help on the outside?
Yeah, they do. They need another receiver. Let me just pull up my my free agent rankings here. Obviously Kenny Golladay would be the number 1 available free agent wide receiver. John Brown just came available, and he's 31 now, but he can still run when healthy. He's dealt with injuries, throughout his career. And this past year, he had a high ankle sprain, and it really stunted his season. But when he was on the field, if you look at the splits for the Bills offense, when John Brown was in the lineup versus when he was not in the lineup, I mean, they scored like, a touchdown more per game or something like that when he was in the lineup. He really did make a difference because, I mean, he can take the top off and he can clear it out even when he's not getting the ball, and I think he made life a little bit easier on Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley and Josh Allen. And they cut him because, number one, the salary cap has been reduced by almost $16 million, but also because they've got a young kid on the way, Gabriel Davis, and he's going to have a chance at a breakout. But John Brown available. Kenny Golladay is the number one. Juju Smith-Schuster is he's still really interesting. He did not have his best year, but I don't think it was his fault. First of all, Ben Roethlisberger really he really fell off this past year, and he got worse as the season progressed. And Juju Smith-Schuster was playing in the slot 85% of the time, and his average depth of route was 6 yards. So he was basically like being used like a tight end. And I think he's got a lot more ability than what he showed this past season. Will Fuller is coming off this suspension for PEDs. He's got an injury history, but man, he can fly. Imagine Terry McLaurin and Will Fuller on the field together. I mean, that would be a lot of fun to watch. And then Corey Davis, he was a top 5 pick coming out of Western Michigan, one of the most productive players, one of the most productive receivers in college football history. He's only 26. He's coming off an awesome year. I've thought that he has like the ability to be a number one receiver, like an actual number one receiver in the NFL, but he's been highly inconsistent. But this past year, it seemed like he took a big step forward. So he would be a guy and I think he would fit like stylistically, because he's a big, strong, physical receiver. Stylistically, he would fit as like a perfect complement to Terry McLaurin.
I know Washington fans are all over Curtis Samuels because of the connection to Carolina. Is he a guy that can eventually learn to line up outside, or is he just a guy you're moving all over all the time?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, and he makes he's the perfect if you're connecting dots. He probably, if you were gonna if we were starting a sports book right now and we were gonna set odds on the wide receiver likeliest to go to Carolina, I mean, it would likeliest to go to Washington, it would certainly be Curtis Samuel because of his connection to Scott Turner. He's only 24. I mean, he came out of Ohio State at age 20. He came out as a sophomore. And he did run traditional outside routes in 2019, but then this past year, his role kind of changed. He was used more in the slot. They used him as a running back. Christian McCaffrey was hurt, so they involved Curtis Samuel more as a running back. You go back to his college career, he had more rushing attempts than he did receptions at Ohio State. So I think the versatility makes him very, very intriguing. And again, the dots connect, and he's another guy, man. I mean, you're talking about a lot of speed on the field. This guy ran 4.31 coming out of Ohio State, and so did Terry McLaurin, or Terry McLaurin ran 4.33 coming out of Ohio State. And Antonio Gibson ran 4.34 or something like that. So that would be a very fun addition. Yeah.
With the salary cap being reduced, to one, I believe it's 182 for the year. Do you see a lot of free agents taking 1-2 year deals as opposed to in previous years they'll try to go get all that they can get in hopes that next year the cap bounce back and they can really get paid?
Yeah, that makes sense. Like that, intuitively that would happen, that maybe agents will encourage players to be willing to settle for 1 and 2 year deals. I hope. I mean, what's the cap going to really bounce back to in 2022 though? I mean, are they just going to use this as the foundation, or are they going to, because the cap was going up $10 million every year, year over year, and now it's going down a lot. And in the NFL, it's unfortunate, but the owners have a lot more power than does the Players Association. So, I mean, all of a sudden, are they going to go back to, and the owners want the cap to be lower, and obviously the players want it to be higher. So are they going to go back to like are they going to add, because theoretically this cap should have been like 26 million more than what it's going to be, because we're not tacking on that extra 10 and we're actually reeling it back. Do we then go to add 36 million onto the cap in 2022? I think the owners are going to be like, are going to play, they're going to play hardball here. I mean,
definitely.
Yeah.
When we're looking for another tight end to put over the other side of Thomas, is that like a Jonnu Smith type guy? Are you busting the bank for Hunter Henry? I mean, what kind of tight end do you think in that two tight? Because they run a ton of two tight end sets there.
Yeah. I think that Kyle Rudolph might be a guy that would make sense, and he got cut. And he can block, and he's like a red zone threat. He's not going to be dynamic, as a pass catcher, but he would be a guy that might make sense opposite Logan Thomas. Looking at I mean, Jonnu and Henry they're going to be expensive. I think Jonnu might get like a big deal, like a bigger deal than people anticipate, because he's a guy that doesn't need to come off the field. He's always been trusted as like a high volume blocker by his coaches. And he was dominating in the red zone early last season before they lost Taylor Lewan, their left tackle, and they had to go with Jonnu Smith as more of a blocker as the season progressed. I don't know. Those would be great gets. Another interesting guy would be Gerald Everett. He's 26 years old, coming from the Rams. He's not really a blocker at all, but he is a guy who can be dynamic in the passing game. He just probably didn't get enough opportunities with the Rams. He was like in a timeshare with Tyler Higbee, and that's what he would be with Logan Thomas, essentially. But there would also be moments where they played together, because, as you mentioned, they do like to run the multiple tight end sets.
Evan, what do you think about this year's free agent class on the offensive line? We discussed earlier, we know Washington has work to do on the left side of the line. I know they're counting on Sadiq Charles. I believe that's Sadiq Charles to come in and hopefully lock down one of them spots this year. But what's out there in the free agent class if one was to go shopping on the left side?
Well, it got hit by a bunch of franchise tags early. Scherf got one. And then Taylor Moton, with whom Scott Turner and Ron Rivera both have a history from Carolina, he got hit with a franchise tag. And then Cam Robinson of the Jaguars got hit with the franchise tag. But then some guys got cut. Nick Martin, Washington doesn't really need a center. But he's a pretty good player. And then Riley Reif, he's kind of like a below average starter. He got cut. Kevin Zeitler, I think, would be awfully interesting for Washington. Now, his history is at right guard, where you have Scherf. Am I saying that right? Is it Sheriff? Some people say Sheriff.
It's Sheriff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Some people say Sheriff, and I'm always like, is that the right pronunciation? No. It's, yeah. And then Ali Villanueva, left tackle from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is just so salary cap strapped that they may have to part with him. He was an Army Ranger in Afghanistan, just an absolute badass. He's getting a little older now, though, and he's not coming off his best season. And then, Darrell Williams has the history with the Carolina guys. He is 28. He's played tackle and guard. He could maybe be a solution at left guard.
Evan, tell us, when you guys started establishing the run, you were already at Roto World, right?
Yeah.
And how did you end up you just started your own website? It's incredible.
Yeah, I worked at NBC Sports / Roto World for like 12 years, and was able to kind of cultivate sort of like a brand, and gain like a pretty decent social media following, and just worked really, really hard for a long time. and, made like a lot of sacrifices and, and then finally, kind of came to the conclusion that I needed to like take a chance on myself. And Adam Levitan, he'd already done that. I worked at Roto World with him for like 6 years, but he had already done that. And he kind of like talked me into, hey, it's time. Let's go do something together. And we did. And this was our second season. And it's been awesome, man. It's the best decision of my life.
Can you talk about the type of work that goes into, running the site? Like, how do your preparation, just the things that you do? Because I think a lot of people, they'll say, oh, I can do that. Like, that's just watching a little bit of tape and talking about, players. But can you just talk about some of the work?
Yeah, well, one good thing actually about the way that we structured the business, I'm not a business person. I guess now technically I am, but that's not my mindset. My mindset is just like trying to pump out the best football content that I possibly can, doing podcasts and, and writing and, going on other people's podcasts and trying and tweeting about football and, producing content as much as I possibly can. But we set it up so that I really don't have to deal with the business side. Like we just decided like, hey, we want you in this role. We don't want you having to deal with, and when I was at Roto World, I was like in charge of, like 10 or 12 people. And I don't have to worry about that stuff anymore. So we set it up so that I can just focus on the content, and we have other guys pretty much taking care of the business side and all the technical stuff. So that was another big plus for leaving Roto World and going off on my own.
Gotcha.
I saw you had somebody on the other day talking about the NBA Top Shot stuff.
Yeah.
Is the NFL going to do that?
I would bet on it. Yes.
Right.
I would think so. I would definitely think so. It's
cool here to stay, right?
I think so. I mean, there's some concern that like, I don't know, there's like conspiracy theories that it's like, I don't want to say anything like stupid, but I mean, there are conspiracy theories about it and stuff like that. And, the website for Top Shot, like it's not always working. It doesn't always work. And, there have been like, I don't want to say anything stupid, but there are definitely like, it's not the most, I don't know. It's not like,
I help you out. It feels like a scam.
I've been trying to get a pack for a month now, it feels like, and there's never a pack available.
It's not 100% legitimized yet. Okay. So, I mean, I think that there is still some trepidation about it, but I think that the NFL is going to be, I mean, this idea of the online collectibles, the more I've read about, I thought it was stupid at first, but then I started to read about it. And I mean, I think it maybe is the way of the future. Like in 20 or 30 years, people aren't going to, their collectibles are not going to be like Beanie Babies and baseball cards anymore. It's going to be like online collectibles, if that makes sense.
I think that's probably some of my trepidation is how do you get over, it may be the old man in me, but how do you get over having something you can touch? Like something tangible. Like how do you quantify a digital asset? And I think that's the hardest part, especially for people, my age range. I don't know how old you are, Evan, but to get over.
No, I'm 37, and that I feel the exact same way. I mean, I kind of feel like I'm a boomer, when I'm when I'm looking at this kind of. I mean, I would much rather have like a baseball card that I could hold,
Right.
But I don't. But I think that people that like I have an 8-year-old daughter, when she's 16, 17, 18, and and like maybe she won't, but like people in her class or around her age range, like young boys, like they might be all into online collectibles.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
It is.
Well, I mean, I guess it's like music being digitalized, right? Nobody's got a tape or a CD anymore.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a really good parallel. Yeah.
But the collectibles, the vinyl came back. Like that's the thing now. It's not
really?
CDs. It's
and paper
vinyl.
cards have come back, right? It's a huge thing now. The cards are back, even the paper ones.
The cards are back.
Surprised by that.
Because every time I go into Walmart, I can't find any. I've been trying to find some. Wow. Yeah, they used to have a big display full of them, and now every time I go in there is literally only Pokemon and WWE cards. That's it.
You're not in on the WWE cards, Pooh?
I have no idea what's going on in the WWE. I can't even tell you who's wrestling right now.
Me either.
At all. Well, Evan, we definitely thank you for coming through. We thank you for taking time with us. Let the people know where they can find you and what you got coming up next. Yeah,
I'm at Evan Silva on Twitter. You can check out at Establish the Run on Twitter and establishtherun.com on the internet. Thanks so much for having me, guys. This was fun. I'm glad we did it.
Yes, indeed.
No doubt. Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Take it easy.
All right. Peace.